Good afternoon and welcome back to Nasdaq Trade Talks. I'm your host, Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq. Joining me at MarketSite is Brianna McGurran. She's a personal finance expert over at NerdWallet. And the question I'm asking is, can you afford going to a wedding as the guest? Thank you so much, Brianna, as always, for joining us at MarketSite. And I would imagine this is a really hot topic for millennials where everyone's getting married and it really does get quite expensive. So the latest NerdWallet surveys out regarding a cost of attending a wedding. There were some really interesting findings in there. How come shopping for a wedding gift is very different than it was even just 20 years ago?
Yeah, weddings are really different now than they used to be. Now couples are doing registries for things like a honeymoon fund or for a down payment fund. And it turns out that guests are actually not as excited about those registries as the couples themselves are. We found that about 60% of Americans said that they'd prefer to give a regular off the registry gift as opposed to cash to one of these honeymoon or down payment funds. And baby boomers in particular said that they were really not into this idea. About 69% of them said they preferred the traditional gift.
Well, I mean, I never even heard of honeymoon funds. It just shows you how I'm a little bit off that millennium spectrum there. But do you think they skip weddings because they simply can't afford to go? I mean, everyone has that one summer where 5-6 friends are getting married, and then you're looking at thousands of dollars each wedding season to get through. Do you find people skip not going to weddings?
They definitely do, and it's actually a good idea in a lot of cases. About 33% of people said that they have either skipped or have considered skipping a wedding because they couldn't afford it. And basically, if you have to put all the charges or all the costs of the wedding on a credit card and you don't know when you're going to be able to pay it back, you can't afford to go, and that's okay. You don't have to go into debt for a friend.
Do wedding guest budgets vary from wedding to wedding? And you had mentioned this before, but they're moving away from traditional gifts. Let's talk about the budgets.
Yeah, so the average budget was about $128 for a gift, which is a lot of money. And millennials are spending $150. Millennial men are spending $180. They can vary quite a bit. They are not as interested in the regular or the funds that we were talking about. They like that average or regular old registry gift. But there are people who are saying that asking for cash is tacky. About more than half said that if the couple asks for cash as a gift, they don't like that.
Do you think budgets are determined if it's your first time down the aisle?
I think so, yeah. We found that about a quarter of people said that they are going to spend less on a wedding gift if the couple, either the bride or the groom, has already been married.
It's interesting because you said that men tend to be the ones that was shelling out the money here, but do you think it's a game of keeping up with the Joneses at some point?
Oh, definitely, especially when you're young. People said, more millennials than other generations said that they're probably going to spend more if their friends spend more on a gift. So when it's your first time going to these weddings and you haven't been through a ton of them yet, you want to spend on your friends because you love them. But actually, after a couple of years, I would guess that people probably start spending less.
What's your best advice for budgeting?
There is so much advice for budgeting, not just for wedding gifts, but in general. Basically, just know what you're earning. Look at your after-tax income and then know where your money is going. And you can use a guideline like the 50-30-20 budget, where you spend 50% of your after-tax income on needs like rent, 30% on things you want, and wedding gifts fall into that category, and 20% or more on savings and debt repayment. So look at that 30% category, figure out what you're spending each month, say on Netflix or concert tickets, and then see if you have some extra to go towards a wedding. You might not, or you might only have $50, and that's okay.
All right, so tell us where millennials can go to learn more about budgeting and finances.
NerdWallet has a ton of tools and resources. We have a mobile app where you can track your spending and see what categories you're spending in, and there's really no excuse not to know what you're spending your money on because there's so many free tools out there. It's just about finding the right one for you.
All right, well, thank you very much for joining us at MarketSite. And thank you for joining me. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.